Hey everybody, this is Keith Gleason, host of Indie Comics Relay, creator of the Mighty Mascots, and promoter for the Plastic City Comic Con. And I'm here with another 5 questions with an indie creator segment. Now, we haven't done one of these in a couple months at least. And these are fun little segments where our schedule gets so filled with creators coming on for our live streams. Like, to give you an example, we're starting to book for January now. So it's starting to get a little tight with booking, and we try to help out as many indie creators as we can, but at the end of the day we only do this a certain amount of times a week and things like that. So I came up with this idea to do a video series called 5 Questions with an Indie Creator, where we can highlight guests that we can't fit into our live stream, but we can get to know them and get to know the projects that they're working on. So in this episode, we're going to be highlighting Ari Groaa, who's a wonderful creator who has been on our show a couple times now. And his comics are always very interesting and different from a lot of what I see in indie comics and mainstream. He always has like a different art style or a different take on it. And before we get into the question segment, I just wanted to show you guys his Kickstarter that's going on now. It's called Upkeep #1. And it's a horror story, but it's also like tied in with home ownership and things like that. So it has kind of a unique take. And I just wanted to show you the campaign really quick. Great art, great storyteller. And this campaign looks cool. So check it out. He is at $368. He's got a goal of almost 2,000. So if you guys can help out, if you like horror, check this out. So, all right. So I'm going to have Ari talk about this book, and I asked him a lot of questions about just horror and his writing. So without further ado, let's get into our questions here. All right. So the first question I asked Ari is, which writers or artists have influenced your approach to horror comics?
So there's a bunch of amazing horror comic writers and artists, of course. Modern ones that I like are James Tynion, Scott Snyder, Michael Walsh in the series Silver Coin, which has rotating writers, but he's always the illustrator. Jeff Lemire, there's a lot of great horror by Jeff Lemire. Alan Moore, of course, is a classic horror comic author. Emily Carroll, who I just want to reference, a guest in the house. I picked up an autographed copy of this quite recently. This is really good. I'll maybe talk about this a little bit later. But the one horror comic I want to mention, because it sort of shaped the way I think about things, is Black Hole by Charles Burns. So if you haven't read it, it's this truly fucked up sort of coming of age story about teenagers, and once they start having sex, they catch this sexually transmitted disease like the bug, which is essentially their journey into adulthood. And it's visceral, it's personal, it's about relationships, it's weird, it's got this dark, high contrast, black and white, like heavy ink style that Charles Burns does. And it's really relatable. It's a small story. It's not giant world ending. Like, it's about people and them just trying to come to grips with their new realities, and it's all social. And that's something I took home from that about horror comics is horror is very, very personal, and I think smaller stories often do a much better job than larger stories. So I'm writing about something that's focused really on, a family, something that is going to see this family and their journey through the years. Very small, very personal, and it allows you to dig into the emotions in a way that I find sort of world-ending stories don't really as much.
All right. Great answer. Number 2, Upkeep is a horror story wrapped in a family drama. What, in your opinion, makes up a great horror story? Go.
Like I was saying, horror is best for me when it's personal. I like smaller stories. I like things that deal with characters and their decisions, and how their decisions play off of a small group of people who they are usually in close proximity with, usually very closely related to, friends or family, something like that. And you don't need to be big, and you don't need to be grand. You just need to get into the messed upness of why someone's making the decisions they are. That's one thing that I wanted to mention about Guest in the House. I know I'm just plugging this book at this point, but It's really just a very small story, like six people, maybe, basically three, maybe four characters that like you'd ever need to remember. And it's just it's real small. It's and it's real personal. And that's what I think you need for a good horror story. You need something that sort of gets into someone's individual decisions in the way that relate to other people, with like full emotion, and just an emphasis on why people make the dark choices that they do.
Good job, man. Get some good answers here. All right, number 3. What was your biggest challenge bringing a comic like this to life? And can we expect more horror stories from you in the future? Go.
So I'll answer the second one first. I tend to write in different styles or different genres. Warden's my other ongoing series, which the first one's out and the second one's art's happening for right now. That's more action comedy, sort of historical fiction. Upkeep is a family drama horror, takes place in the current day. I am writing a short horror story for an upcoming anthology called Unseen Unheard, an anthology about disability and neurodivergence. It's about sort of OCD and Tourette's, and takes a sort of a dark turn, sort of horror turn on that. My next story, whenever this happens, is going to be a coming of age story about teaching English in Japan. So I've got different styles and different kind of stories I want to tell. The biggest challenge bringing comics to life is really committing to like writing, creating, and promoting this thing that I can be proud of. And I have a very high standard for my personal work. I spend a lot of time writing comics, a lot of time editing comics, a lot of time thinking like constantly about all the details, the small details that nobody cares about, but I do. And then basically going out and begging people to support it. I mean, there's so many good comics out there. Why would anyone choose mine over anything else? That is an extremely difficult thing for me, just in terms of I guess, just the emotional bandwidth and the amount of time that it takes to do the Kickstarter campaigns and promotion. I would just much rather be doing the creation, even though it's kind of like an insane thing that takes forever. I don't know. I'm an artist at heart, I guess.
Awesome. All right, moving on. Number 4. How do you tap into the common fears and anxieties to make your horror comic resonate with readers?
Well, one thing I think a lot about in writing is relatability. How much can you feel for the characters in the story? How much do you understand the situation that they're in? How much, either the big broad situation or just the interpersonal relationships, when two people are having like a discussion or a fight or something. Can you see yourself being in that? Upkeep is interesting because Wardens, which, again, my other series, that's a very working class comic in terms of most of the people there are living in a poor immigrant neighborhood, where Upkeep is very middle class. It focuses on sort of middle class issues with a young family, not like, totally broke, but like not super rich either, trying to find a job. One guy's trying to find a job, and they're trying to find a house, living in a tiny apartment, dealing with a terrible neighbor. The husband can't seem to get a job. The wife has a job, but it doesn't matter because everything costs way more now than it did, 10 years ago. So I'm looking for relatability in here. And, you don't necessarily need to be in someone's positioned directly to be relatable. I mean, no one on Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon or whatever, like, pick your fantasy or whatever sci-fi show. I'm not ever in their situation exactly, but the emotional situation, the emotional parallels between you and the characters have to be there. So that's the relatability I'm going for. Sometimes it's the specific situations, but it's really, you have to be able to see yourself in the characters or see aspects of yourself in them.
Awesome. All right, number 5. How do you strike a balance between frightening your readers and engaging them in the story?
Upkeep is interesting because it's not a straight horror story. The point of the story isn't just to scare the pants off people. It's to have a dark supernatural sort of sense to it, while also telling a story of a family living in this house that they get the good and they get the bad as well. And they're going to live there for years. It's about raising a family. It's a family drama with sort of a dark horror undertone. Like we raise our family and we're all happy, but like, what are the things that we need to do in order to like have this happiness? There needs to be some darkness, which, is of course a metaphor for the fact that every, good thing that we benefit from in our society. There's usually down the train someone who is, not doing so well or being taken advantage of, or, put in a bad position, and we get to benefit from. So it's trying to make that immediate. Finding a balance between frightening people and engaging them. Upkeep also is a little funny. I mean, I tend to put comedy on almost everything I write, even if it's like a bit of a dark comedy. My first draft for issue 1 was like full of jokes. And my editor was like, nope, like wrong book. You need to make this a lot like darker, a lot more dramatic. And she was right. But, it's still a magical murder house. And so I'm going to have some fun with it.
All right. And we got a 6th and bonus question. This one's kind of a fun one. What are some of your guilty pleasure horror entertainment, either in comics, movies, or television? Go.
So I'm just going to give you one. Puella Magi Madoka Magica. This is an anime series, 12-episode anime series from 2011. If you know, you know. It's a horror-filled, very dark subversion of the magical girl anime trope. Starts out fairly normal and then sort of takes a turn for the truly messed up. The horror in the show works really well because for the first couple episodes, you're like, oh yeah, this is like magical girl thing. It's sort of, like Sailor Moon's the most common example of that, but there's many others. And the time you get to episode 3, you're like, oh, it's not that show. It's a different show. And it's great because of that. And it just keeps getting progressively darker and more messed up and is great for it. So there's a 12-issue series. There's a couple of movies. One rehashes the TV show. One is sort of a new thing. And they're making another movie for it. So I'm sort of excited for that. That is my truly dark guilty pleasure.
All right. Great job, Ari. Appreciate all the answers here. But one more thing. Please give us a quick 2-sentence elevator pitch for Upkeep. Go.
New parents Adam and Yvonne are desperate to buy a home in Toronto, but are bitterly priced out of the market. Their fortune changes when Adam receives the key to Garrison Manor, a mysterious mansion that provides them with anything their hearts desire. But nothing comes for free, and Garrison Manor requires regular upkeep, a blood sacrifice Adam must learn to master if he wants to keep his newfound dream home from becoming a horror-filled nightmare. Also, if you just want the X meets Y thing for Upkeep, Little Shop of Horrors meets Cribs.
Awesome. All right, so everybody, check out Ari Groa's Upkeep. It's on Kickstarter right now. Link is in the description of the video below. Definitely checking him out. He's a great creator. He's always a great guest when he comes on our show. And this book, if you're a horror fan, I think this book is for you. So check it out. All right, everybody, have a great week. Have a great Labor Day, and we'll talk to you later. All right, bye.
Printed with Comics Wellspring. And yeah, this is printed with Comics Wellspring. Came out beautiful.
High quality stuff. People think it's fantastic. All the books that you see at my table are through Comics Wellspring.